What if everything you thought you knew about the Middle Ages was just the surface? Hidden beneath tales of knights and kings are secrets no one has ever solved. Think vanished treasures, cryptic manuscripts, and bizarre events that defy explanation. In this video, we're diving into 10 of the most mind-blowing mysteries from the medieval world. And trust me, some of them are downright chilling. Stick around, because number 10 will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about our beautiful world. At the top of our mystery list is a mysterious manuscript that has baffled experts. Imagine discovering a beautifully illustrated codex bound in worn, darkened vellum. Its pages filled with delicate botanical drawings of plants unknown to science, swirling astronomical diagrams, and flowing text in an alien script that defies all attempts at translation. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a 15th century book whose origin, language, and purpose remain one of the medieval world's most tantalizing enigmas. Despite centuries of scholarly scrutiny, digital analysis, and passionate amateur sleuthing, no one has definitively deciphered its contents or identified the mind behind its creation. The manuscript resurfaced in Europe in the early 20th century, though carbon dating of the vellum places its creation between roughly 1404 and 1438 CE. Its pages are divided into sections, namely herbal, astronomical, biological, cosmological, pharmaceutical, and recipes, each brimming with intricate, hand-drawn imagery of fanciful plants, zodiac wheels, naked figures bathing in green pools, and jars resembling apothecary vessels. The text flows in an unknown script of consistent letter-like glyphs, arranged in words and paragraphs, with statistical properties resembling those of natural languages, yet resisting every proposed reading. At its core lies a maze of unanswered questions. Who commissioned or authored this work, and for what purpose? Early owners included a Prague alchemist, likely Rudolf II of Bohemia, and later Jesuit scholars, suggesting that contemporaries may have viewed it as a work of alchemy, astrology, or secret knowledge. The lack of a colophon or title page deprives us of direct clues. The binding and ink composition point to a European origin, possibly northern Italy or Central Europe, but no documentary trail conclusively ties it to a known scribe or patron. Attempts to decipher the script have spanned centuries. In the mid-20th century, cryptographers from World War II code-breaking teams examined it without success. Modern computational linguistics has applied pattern recognition algorithms and machine learning. Some studies highlight repeated glyph sequences suggesting prefixes or suffixes. Others model it as a cipher with null characters or as a constructed language. Yet every promising statistical correlation stumbles when tested against alternative hypotheses, leaving the text immune to definitive decryption. Some scholars argue that the consistent internal structure indicates a genuine language. Skeptics propose it might be an elaborate hoax or glossolalia, meaningful-looking gibberish crafted to mystify. But creating hundreds of pages of coherent gibberish that mimic language statistics with medieval tools would itself be an extraordinary feat. The botanical illustrations intensify the mystery. Many plants depicted do not match any known species. Some appear as composites of multiple specimens or entirely fantastical. Could these be real but extinct or regional flora unknown to modern science? Or were they imaginative renderings meant to encode esoteric information? Comparative botanical analysis has identified a few possible matches, but no consensus emerges, and the overall herbal section resists straightforward identification. Astronomical diagrams feature circular charts with zodiac-like symbols and star patterns, yet their orientations and accompanying text defy clear interpretation. Are they star charts for astrological calculations, cosmological maps, or symbolic representations of pilgrimage routes? The biological pages, showing dozens of tiny nude figures immersed in interconnected tubes or pools, evoke ritual bathing or alchemical processes. But without a key, we cannot be sure whether they depict medical practices, mystical rites, or allegorical concepts. Recent research explores the possibility of layered composition. Ultraviolet and multispectral imaging reveal erased or overwritten sketches beneath some drawings, hinting at revisions by the original scribe or successive hands. This suggests a working manuscript, perhaps a compendium of knowledge under development, rather than a purely decorative or deceptive object. However, without understanding the script, we cannot place these modifications in context. Provenance research traces the manuscript's journey through European collectors, yet gaps remain. Could a forgotten monastic scribe, have compiled local herbal lore and astrological observations into a private treatise? Or did a courtly alchemist craft it as a coded repository of secret methods, intended for a select initiate? The absence of corroborating documents means that each theory leans on circumstantial evidence and interpretive leaps. The Voynich Manuscript endures as a mirror for our curiosity. Every new analytical tool, from AI-driven pattern detection to high-resolution imaging, yields fresh data, but also fresh puzzles. Deciphering it would not only unlock its medieval wisdom, but also illuminate the intellectual networks and cultural exchanges of its time, until a breakthrough emerges, perhaps an unknown cipher key in an obscure archive or a chance reference in a lost inventory. The Voynich Manuscript will remain a testament to the allure of hidden knowledge and the limits of our understanding. If this medieval enigma has intrigued you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next episode. Mystery number 2, Constantinople's Lost Library after the Fourth Crusade. Imagine a vast imperial library in the heart of medieval Constantinople. Shelves laden with Byzantine manuscripts, classical Greek texts copied and illuminated by generations of scribes, theological treatises, chronicles of emperors, scientific works preserving antiquity's wisdom, and diplomatic correspondence documenting centuries of empire. Then envision that in April 1204, Latin crusaders breached the city's walls, and in the ensuing chaos, these treasures vanish, leaving only tantalizing hints of what once existed. What became of the great Byzantine collections after the sack of Constantinople, and could some still be hidden somewhere? Prior to 1204, Constantinople was the intellectual heart of Eastern Christendom. Palace workshops and monastic scriptoria produced and safeguarded thousands of codices containing works on classical philosophy, histories of Rome and Byzantium, patristic writings, medical compendia, mathematical and astronomical treatises, legal codes, and liturgical books. Many rare texts, lost in the West, were preserved only in Byzantine copies found in Constantinople. Scholars from across Europe and the Islamic world recognized the city as a center of learning. When the Fourth Crusade diverted to Constantinople, participants found immense wealth, including gold, relics, icons, and libraries filled with priceless manuscripts. Contemporary Latin chroniclers describe crusaders carrying away carts of books, while some volumes were thrown into fire to extract gold bindings or simply trampled amid the frenzy. Venetian forces claimed countless codices as spoils. The imperial palace and important monasteries like those on the Prince's Islands and Mount Athos also suffered. Monastic libraries, though partially protected by monks' appeals, were not spared entirely. After the sack, some manuscripts entered Western hands. Venetian collectors and ecclesiastical institutions acquired volumes, but documentation is sparse. Over subsequent decades, Greek scholars fleeing Ottoman threats carried fragments of their patrimony westward, settling in Italy and translating Greek texts into Latin. This diaspora seeded the Renaissance, yet it also obscured provenance. Works once in Constantinople now reside in Florence, Venice, Paris, or Oxford, often unrecognized as survivors from the imperial library. However, a vast portion of the library remains unaccounted for, potentially including entire genres such as minor treatises on natural philosophy, unique commentaries on Aristotle, local chronicles of lesser-known Byzantine regions, and oral traditions never recorded elsewhere. Some may lie miscatalogued in European monastic libraries, labeled simply as Greek miscellany, awaiting rediscovery by philologists. Others may have perished in subsequent events such as fires in Western libraries, the Ottoman conquest of former Byzantine centers, or neglect during political upheavals. Legends speak of hidden caches, with monks reportedly burying secret volumes in stone chambers beneath monasteries or concealing them in remote Athonite cells. Some suggest that in the chaos of 1204, scribes secretly copied key texts and smuggled manuscripts to Armenia, Georgia, or the Slavic lands, where they might survive in obscure regional archives. Recent scholars have begun tracing marginal notes and paleographic features in extant manuscripts to link them back to Constantinopolitan scriptoria, but these scholarly detective efforts cover only a fraction of what might have existed. Modern technology offers fresh hope. Multispectral imaging can recover faded glosses. Digital cataloging and collaborative databases enable cross-referencing manuscripts across libraries, and provenance research using watermark analysis and colophon comparisons may reveal Constantinopolitan origins. Yet political and logistical challenges persist, including restricted access to some Eastern Orthodox collections, dispersed holdings across multiple countries, and the sheer volume of uncatalogued medieval manuscripts that impede systematic searches. Ultimately, the fate of Constantinople's lost library is a story of destruction and survival, and of knowledge scattered across continents and centuries. Each rediscovered Byzantine manuscript in a European or Middle Eastern archive represents a triumph over that medieval calamity. But until every hidden shelf is examined and every marginal note scrutinized, many works will remain ghosts of a vanished empire's intellectual glory. If this journey into vanished scrolls and hidden archives intrigued you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll explore mystery number 3, the Knights Templar treasure and the vanished fortunes of a medieval order. Imagine an immense cache of gold, silver, and precious relics amassed by a powerful medieval order, suddenly vanishing overnight when King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V moved to suppress the Knights Templar in 1307. The order's financial network spanned Europe and the Holy Land, managing estates, lending money to monarchs, and safeguarding pilgrims' valuables. Then, in a coordinated stroke, thousands of knights were arrested, their properties seized, and their grand archives destroyed or dispersed. What became of the Templars' legendary wealth? Did it vanish in secret, finance new ventures, or lie hidden awaiting rediscovery? At the heart of this mystery lies the Templars' unique role as a proto-banking institution. Pilgrims entrusted them with funds in Europe, monarchs borrowed from their coffers, and their commanderies held extensive landholdings. As arrests began on October 13, 1307, chroniclers described scenes of frantic hiding. Records were burned, hoards secreted in hidden vaults, and trusted brothers dispatched to safe locations. Given the rapidity of the crackdown and Philip's significant debt to the order, it's likely some treasure was spirited away before the dragnet closed. Contemporary trial records and confiscation inventories provide tantalizing clues, but no definitive trail. French royal officials cataloged seized properties, yet entries are vague. Some documents hint at missing ledgers, suggesting that key records were destroyed or spirited off. Rumors circulated that Grand Master Jacques de Molay or other senior Templars sent envoys to Iberia or Scotland with concealed treasure. Portugal's King Denis negotiated with the Pope to absorb surviving Templar assets into a new order, raising speculation that portions of the treasure passed under his protection. Legends proliferated. Some claim that a flotilla of Templar ships set sail from La Rochelle carrying gold to Scotland or beyond. Others posit that deep vaults beneath Temple Mount in Jerusalem hid vast reserves until the fall of Acre. Romantic tales link the treasure to later organizations such as the Freemasons or secret societies, suggesting an unbroken chain preserving Templar riches. Yet no verifiable hoards matching the scale described in medieval accounts have surfaced. Small caches attributed to Templars appear occasionally, but amount to modest sums rather than empire-shaking wealth. Modern historians approach the question by examining financial flows and legal dispositions. Many Templar estates in France and England were transferred to the Knights Hospitaller or local sovereigns. Revenues that once sustained Templar coffers were repurposed rather than disappearing entirely. Some royal debts were forgiven in exchange for surrendering properties, implying that at least part of the order's movable assets may have been paid off under duress. However, these administrative reallocations cannot account for hidden bullion or portable treasures rumored to be secreted abroad. Archaeological searches for buried caches face daunting challenges. Centuries of urban development over former commandery sites obscure potential vaults. Clandestine hiding places remain speculative without corroborating documents. Researchers also use geochemical analysis on coins and artifacts recovered from presumed Templar contexts to trace origins, yet these seldom reveal large-scale treasure movements. The human element deepens the intrigue. Survivors of the purge dispersed across Europe, carrying fragmented memories of secret stashes. Oral traditions in rural communities speak of Templar hoards buried in forests or mountain caves. Occasional treasure hunts in the 17th and 18th centuries claim to uncover silver coins or small reliquaries, but never the fabled mass of wealth. The very paucity of evidence fuels further speculation. Did the Templars truly hide a massive fortune, or did political pressures force them to liquidate and scatter assets in smaller sums impossible to trace today? Ultimately, the fate of the Templar treasure may rest forever beyond reach of certainty. The order's swift downfall, the destruction or concealment of records, and the reallocation of properties through royal and papal channels scattered their wealth into myriad hands. Yet the enduring legend of a lost Templar hoard speaks to our fascination with hidden riches and secret knowledge. Each archival discovery offers a glimmer of possibility, but the full trove, if it ever existed as described, remains a phantom of medieval intrigue. If this tale of vanished fortunes and clandestine vaults captivated you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll delve into mystery number 4, the Green Children of Woolpit, and the strange legend that has puzzled historians for centuries. Imagine 2 children emerging at twilight from a wolf-infested pit in rural Suffolk, their skin tinged an otherworldly green, speaking a strange language and bewildered by the familiar world around them. This is the 12th century legend of the Green Children of Woolpit, a tale recorded by medieval chroniclers that continues to intrigue historians, folklorists, and scientists alike. Despite centuries of analysis, the true origin of these children, and the meaning behind their peculiar complexion, remains unresolved. According to accounts by Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh during the reign of King Stephen, circa 1135 to 1154, villagers of Woolpit discovered 2 youngsters near one of the wolf pits used to trap predators. They wore unfamiliar clothing, spoke in an unknown tongue, and initially accepted only raw beans as sustenance. Over time, they learned English, adapted to local food, and the boy eventually fell ill and died. The girl survived, lost her green hue, and assimilated into society. She purportedly said they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, a land of perpetual green twilight, and they had been herding animals into a cave when they stumbled into this strange new world. At its core lies a maze of unanswered questions. Were these children truly foreign castaways, victims of dislocation, or did the tale arise from allegory and oral tradition? A leading hypothesis suggests these children were orphaned Flemish siblings who escaped turmoil in Flanders and became lost while wandering. Language barriers and unfamiliar attire could explain their initial mystery. Iron deficiency anemia has been proposed to account for green-tinged skin. In extreme cases, deficiency can cause a grayish-green pallor, especially in malnourished children. If they subsisted on beans or inadequate diets before rescue, this medical condition might temporarily color their complexion until proper nutrition restored normal tone. Others emphasize the folkloric dimension. Medieval listeners often believed in subterranean realms inhabited by fairy or little people. The children's story of an underground green world could reflect such beliefs. Chroniclers might have recorded a popular folktale that served moral or religious lessons, such as the transition from darkness to light as the children adapted to Christian baptism and earthly society. The motif of green children appears elsewhere in folklore as emblematic of outsider status or interaction with the uncanny. Some modern researchers have explored environmental explanations. Could the children have been lost in a mine or pit where mineral exposure or fungal toxins caused transient skin discoloration? For example, exposure to certain copper compounds or ingestion of plants containing biliverdin might produce greenish skin in theory, though evidence is scant and speculative. Others note that beans alone are unlikely to induce such dramatic hue, and surviving accounts describe the green shade fading over weeks, fitting more plausibly with anemia recovery than acute poisoning. Attempts to locate the precise historical moment and individuals behind the tale remain inconclusive. Woolpit and neighboring villages lack conclusive records of missing children or Flemish settlements matching the time frame, though 12th century East Anglia saw waves of immigrant laborers. The absence of corroborating legal or ecclesiastical documents means the story survives primarily through narrative chronicles, which favored moralizing or sensational episodes. The Green Children of Woolpit endures as a mirror for our fascination with the unfamiliar. A child's otherness, the boundary between known and unknown lands, and the interplay of myth and reality in medieval consciousness. Whether a real pair of lost children afflicted by medical conditions, a symbolic allegory of cultural integration, or a fusion of both, the legend continues to prompt inquiry into medieval life, health, and belief systems. Its stubborn resistance to definitive explanation ensures that each generation rediscovers the mystery, pondering what lies behind the green veil of this medieval enigma. If this story of uncanny children and vanished homelands has captivated you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll confront mystery number 5, The Princes in the Tower and the Fate of England's Young Heirs. Imagine two young royal brothers, Edward V, aged 12, and his younger sibling Richard, Duke of York, aged 9, lodged under guard in the Tower of London in 1483, only to vanish without a trace and ignite centuries of speculation about their fate. After their father, King Edward IV's sudden death, the boys were declared illegitimate and their uncle, Richard of Gloucester, proclaimed king. The disappearance of the princes remains one of medieval England's most enduring enigmas. Were they murdered within the tower, spirited away to live in secret, or victims of some other twist of fate? At the core lies a web of political intrigue. When Edward IV died in April 1483, his son, Edward V, was en route to London. Richard of Gloucester, named Protector, confined the boys in the tower ostensibly for their safety during Edward's coronation. Yet soon after, Parliament under Richard's influence declared the princes illegitimate based on alleged pre-contract of Edward IV's marriage, and Richard assumed the throne as Richard III. Almost immediately, rumors spread that the princes had been murdered to eliminate rival claimants. Contemporary sources are fragmentary and often biased. Sir Thomas More's later account narrates a grisly tale of the princes smothered in their beds, but he wrote under Henry IV's Tudor regime, which had motive to vilify Richard III. The Croyland Chronicle and Polydore Virgil offer versions of their fate, but differ in details and authorship contexts. No direct eyewitness record describes the act or location of a murder. In 1674, workmen in the tower grounds unearthed a small wooden box containing two child-sized skeletons. Reburied in Westminster Abbey, these remains were long assumed to be the princes, but no conclusive forensic analysis has confirmed their identity. DNA testing was not possible then, and modern exhumation faces ethical and legal barriers. Several theories compete. The traditional view holds that Richard III ordered their killing, perhaps aided by loyal retainers. Others propose that later Tudor propagandists exaggerated his guilt, and the boys may have died of illness or been smuggled away. Some suggest Henry Stafford, Duke of Buckingham, might have orchestrated their removal for his own claim or to curry favor. A survival hypothesis posits that one or both princes escaped and lived incognito, inspiring pretenders like Perkin Warbeck. However, credible evidence for this remains thin. Archaeological and forensic opportunities are limited. The tower's precincts have been extensively redeveloped, complicating any attempt to locate potential burial sites. The 17th-century skeletons, though evocative, cannot be definitively linked to Elizabeth Woodville's children without comparative DNA from known relatives. A complex proposition given the passage of time and unknown preservation of reference remains. Genealogical studies of Plantagenet descendants might one day enable testing, but procedural and ethical hurdles persist. The enduring fascination reflects more than a historical mystery. It illuminates medieval power struggles, the fragility of royal bloodlines, and the ways subsequent regimes shape narratives. Each new scholarly analysis of chronicle biases, legal maneuverings around legitimacy, and material culture of the late Plantagenet court refines our understanding, but rarely resolves the core question. What truly happened to Edward V and his brother? Until firm evidence emerges, unlikely given the passage of centuries, the princes in the tower remain emblematic of history's silences. Their story endures in literature, drama, and public imagination as a cautionary tale of ambition and innocence lost. If this medieval mystery gripped you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Next time we'll explore mystery number 6, Beowulf's authorship and the origins of England's greatest epic. Imagine a tale of dragons, sea monsters, and heroic duels preserved in a single fragile manuscript, its origins unknown, its authorship a centuries-old riddle. Beowulf, the crown jewel of Old English literature, survives in just one medieval document, the Noel Codex, dated between the late 10th and early 11th centuries. Yet, the poem itself likely originates from an even earlier period, perhaps the 8th century or before. Who wrote this epic? Was it a single bard recording fading oral traditions, or a monk compiling, editing, and reshaping pre-Christian legends for a Christianized England? The identity of Beowulf's author remains entirely anonymous. No medieval record names the writer, and the manuscript itself is silent, offering no signature, colophon, or dedicatory note. The poem is written in the West Saxon dialect, but scholars debate whether the original composition may have emerged from Mercian or Northumbrian regions, where earlier Anglo-Saxon poetic traditions thrived. This has led to debates not only about the author's identity, but also about their geographical and cultural context. Internally, the poem blends vivid pagan imagery with overt Christian themes. Heroes give thanks to a singular god, yet their worldview reflects Norse-style fatalism, heroic codes, and burial rites. This fusion has puzzled historians. Was the author a devout Christian who infused an older heathen story with biblical morality? Or was it an oral saga gradually reshaped by Christian scribes until it took its final written form? Some scholars argue the poem's structure and vocabulary suggest a literate, court-educated poet well-versed in Latin and Germanic traditions. Others believe the poet may have been part of a monastic community, trained to preserve vernacular stories in written form as part of cultural stewardship. Stylistic analysis adds more layers of complexity. Beowulf is composed in alliterative verse, marked by rhythm, repetition, and kennings. While this style was common in Anglo-Saxon poetry, Beowulf's sophistication is extraordinary. The poet deftly manages interwoven themes of loyalty, fate, and the transience of life. The narrative also displays structural symmetry and symbolic layering, hinting at deliberate craftsmanship rather than random patchwork. This suggests a single creative mind, or perhaps a master redactor who refined multiple oral versions into one cohesive whole. Textual studies further complicate matters. The manuscript shows signs of being copied by two scribes, neither of whom appears to be the original author. Some passages may have been altered, damaged, or even misunderstood by the copyists, raising questions about what the original poem might have looked like. Moreover, modern reconstructions often rely on educated guesswork based on linguistic patterns and paleographic clues. In the 20th century, literary giants like J.R.R. Tolkien helped elevate Beowulf from antiquarian relic to epic masterpiece. Tolkien argued that the poem's mythical content and Christian worldview were not contradictory, but intentionally blended to create a meditation on heroism and mortality. His influential 1936 lecture, Beowulf, The Monsters and the Critics, reframed the debate, positioning the anonymous poet as a thoughtful artist, not merely a transcriber of folklore. Despite decades of philological study, digital analysis, and comparative literature research, the author's name, and even their time period, remains elusive. Was Beowulf the creation of a single poetic genius, or the product of centuries of cultural transmission distilled into verse? Until new evidence emerges, the true identity of Beowulf's creator may forever remain cloaked in the mists of medieval history. If this mystery about England's greatest poem left you intrigued, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because in our next episode, we'll dive into the legend behind mystery number 7, the historical Arthur. Was there a real king behind the myth? Was King Arthur a real man, or merely a legend forged in the fires of myth and medieval imagination? For centuries, tales of Camelot, the Knights of the Round Table, and the sword Excalibur have enchanted audiences. But beneath the romantic veneer lies one of the greatest historical puzzles of the medieval world. Did a historical Arthur truly exist? And if so, where and when did he live? The earliest references to Arthur are surprisingly elusive. The name doesn't appear in contemporary Roman or sub-Roman military records. However, in the 9th century Latin chronicle Historia Brittonum, attributed to Nennius, Arthur emerges not as a king, but as a warrior leader who supposedly fought in 12 great battles against the invading Saxons. Yet this account, written centuries after the events it describes, offers no verifiable historical context, and blends folklore with pseudo-history. Even earlier, a possible reference to Arthur appears in a 7th century Welsh poem, but scholars debate whether this is truly about the legendary figure or a different person entirely. Then comes Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae, which transforms Arthur into a full-fledged monarch, complete with a noble lineage, a magical sword, and a sprawling empire. Geoffrey claimed to have translated an ancient British source, now lost, but modern historians generally regard his work as more fiction than fact. Still, it became wildly influential, birthing the Arthurian literary tradition that flourished in the High Middle Ages across Europe. If a historical Arthur did exist, many scholars believe he may have been a Romano-British military leader who resisted Saxon advances in the 5th or 6th century during the chaotic post-Roman period. Possible candidates include Lucius Artorius Castus, a 2nd century Roman officer whose name and career loosely parallel Arthurian attributes, or Owain Danquin, a 5th century Welsh prince whose battles might have inspired the legend. Others point to a composite theory. Arthur wasn't one man, but an amalgamation of several war leaders whose deeds were woven into a single mythical figure over time. Archaeology has tried to offer clues. Excavations at Cadbury Castle in Somerset, identified by tradition as Camelot, revealed signs of a substantial fortification dating to the late 5th century, including imported Mediterranean pottery, suggesting a wealthy and powerful stronghold. Yet there is no direct link to Arthur. Similarly, sites like Tintagel Castle in Cornwall, often cited as Arthur's birthplace, show evidence of elite occupation during the right period. But again, no inscription or artifact naming Arthur has ever been found. Linguists and textual critics have also weighed in. The name Arthur itself may derive from the Roman family name Artorius or the Celtic word Ardos, meaning bear. But etymology alone can't confirm a historical existence. Even medieval clerics and chroniclers seem divided. Some treated Arthur as a real king, while others viewed him as a symbol of lost glory and idealized kingship. Ultimately, the lack of concrete evidence has kept Arthur straddling the line between myth and reality. Unlike well-documented medieval figures, Arthur exists in a narrative fog, his image shaped more by poets and chroniclers than by records or ruins. And yet, the persistence of his legend across centuries suggests that he spoke to something deeper, a longing for heroism, justice, and a golden age that perhaps never was. So was Arthur a real person? A forgotten warlord elevated to myth? Or purely a product of storytelling genius? Until a definitive discovery is made, the historical Arthur remains an enigma cloaked in legend. If this mystery of Britain's greatest mythical king captivated you, be sure to like and subscribe. In our next episode, we'll forge ahead into mystery number 8, the lost secrets of Damascus steel production. How did medieval swordsmiths create blades that baffle modern metallurgists to this day? Imagine a blade so sharp it could slice through silk midair, so strong it could clash with armor without breaking, and so beautiful it gleamed with watery, swirling patterns etched into the metal itself. Such was the legend of Damascus steel, crafted in the medieval Islamic world and revered for centuries as the pinnacle of metallurgical mastery. But despite its fame and widespread use across the Middle East, South Asia, and even medieval Europe, the exact methods used to produce true Damascus steel remain lost to history. These fabled blades were not made in Damascus, Syria, as the name might suggest, but likely received their name due to the city's role as a major trading hub where such weapons were sold. The true production centers were likely in regions such as Persia, India, or Central Asia, where smiths worked with a specialized form of high-carbon steel known as woods. This steel, originally produced in India as early as 300 BCE, contained a unique mix of impurities and carbon nanostructures that contributed to its famed strength and flexibility. By the time of the Crusades, Damascus blades had become the stuff of legend. European knights returning from the Holy Land brought home tales of Muslim swords that could cleave their weapons in two and still remain razor-sharp. These stories helped feed the mystique, but even contemporary smiths never fully understood what made these blades so superior. Modern metallurgists have tried to recreate Damascus steel for over a century, analyzing ancient blades with electron microscopes and spectroscopy. What they've discovered is extraordinary. Some authentic samples contain microscopic structures of carbon nanotubes and carbide crystals, patterns that may have arisen from repeated cycles of heating, folding, and cooling in a carbon-rich environment. These processes, however, were not written down in treatises or manuals. Instead, they were passed orally from master to apprentice, guarded as precious trade secrets. The mystery deepens in the 18th century when the original technique seemingly vanished. Some believe the decline of trade routes disrupted the supply of crucial ore from Indian mines, especially the iron-rich, low-sulfur, high-phosphorus ore needed to make woods. Others suggest that changes in furnace design, cultural shifts, or the collapse of guild knowledge contributed to the loss. Whatever the cause, by the early 1800s, the secret had disappeared from active memory. Attempts to duplicate the exact crystalline structure have failed to reproduce the same mechanical properties. No modern recreation has yet matched the performance or aesthetics of the originals. Interestingly, the blade's famous patterns, called Damascus or ladder patterns, were not merely decorative. Many scientists now believe they were an outward sign of the material's unique microstructure, tied to both the forging technique and the ore's composition. Yet, Without knowing the precise atmospheric conditions, impurity ratios, and heat treatment schedules, we're left chasing shadows. So, was Damascus steel the result of accidental genius, painstaking experimentation, or a now-lost science of ancient materials engineering? The answer may lie buried in forgotten manuscripts, unexcavated forges, or undiscovered mines. Until such a breakthrough occurs, Damascus steel remains one of the most tantalizing technological mysteries of the medieval world. If you found this medieval metallurgical enigma fascinating, don't forget to like and subscribe. In the next episode, we'll plunge into mystery number 9, medieval plague dynamics. What strange patterns caused the Black Death to return again and again? In the mid-14th century, a terrifying specter swept across Europe, Asia, and North Africa, the Black Death. This pandemic, peaking between 1347 and 1351, killed an estimated 25 to 50 million people in Europe alone, wiping out as much as half the population. Caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, the plague decimated cities, destabilized economies, and transformed medieval society. But while historians and scientists agree on its immediate devastation, what remains a persistent mystery is the strange, recurring nature of plague outbreaks that followed, and the underlying forces that dictated their timing and ferocity. The initial wave of the Black Death was not a one-time catastrophe. Plague reappeared in dozens of lethal episodes across the medieval world for the next 3 centuries. Some outbreaks were highly localized, while others spread with alarming speed across regions. But what dictated the rhythm of these recurrences? Why would the plague vanish for years or decades, only to return suddenly and violently? Contemporary records speak of repeated waves in 1361, 1369, 1374, and onward, each time thinning a population that was still reeling from the previous blow. Medieval chroniclers, unaware of germ theory, attributed the plague to everything from divine punishment and astrological alignments to bad air and poisoned wells. Today, we understand that Yersinia pestis is typically carried by fleas that infest rodents, particularly the black rat. But this explanation alone doesn't account for the complex patterns of plague resurgence. Recent studies suggest a web of interrelated factors may be at play. Climate anomalies, such as cold spells, droughts, or unusually wet seasons, could have affected rodent populations in Central Asia, causing infected fleas to seek new hosts and spread outward along trade routes. Some researchers have identified correlations between plague waves and climatic events like the Little Ice Age or solar minima, hinting at a broader environmental connection. Yet there's another puzzle. Why did some cities experience multiple outbreaks while others escaped relatively unscathed? Were urban density, trade frequency, or hygiene standards to blame? Venice, for instance, implemented quarantine stations and maritime inspections as early as the 15th century, possibly curbing the spread. Meanwhile, isolated mountain communities or coastal villages sometimes went untouched even as nearby cities suffered massive losses. Adding to the mystery is the sudden decline in plague severity by the 18th century. Did the bacteria mutate into a less lethal form? Did human populations develop some form of genetic resistance? Or did improvements in housing, sanitation, and pest control finally break the transmission cycle? There is no definitive answer. One particularly fascinating theory proposes that Yersinia pestis never really established a long-term reservoir in Europe, but was repeatedly reintroduced from Asia via trade networks like the Silk Road. In this view, the plague's return was not just a matter of local conditions, but of global ecological shifts affecting rodent populations across continents. Despite cutting-edge DNA analysis of plague victims' remains and the sequencing of ancient strains, we still lack a clear understanding of what drove the rhythms of death during the medieval era. Each new discovery, like the detection of Y. pestis DNA in centuries-old graves or the reconstruction of bacterial genomes, brings us closer to the truth but also adds new layers of complexity. Ultimately, medieval plague dynamics are a chilling reminder of how interconnected the world has always been, and how little control even the most advanced societies can exert over nature's darkest forces. Stick around, because next we head to South India to investigate mystery number 10, Brihadeeswarar Temple's Chola masonry, a towering granite marvel built over 1,000 years ago without modern machinery. In the heart of Tamil Nadu, South India, rises a monumental stone structure that has defied time and engineering explanation for over 1,000 years, the Brihadeeswarar Temple. Commissioned by the Chola Emperor, Raja I, and completed around 1010 CE. This UNESCO World Heritage Site remains one of the largest and most architecturally audacious temples in India. Its crowning glory is a 60-meter-tall tower built entirely of granite, an astonishing feat given the tools and technology available during the medieval period. What makes this temple such a compelling mystery is the sheer scale and precision of its construction. The temple's central tower is capped by a single stone weighing approximately 80 tons. No cranes, steel tools, or modern construction equipment existed at the time. How then did the Chola builders quarry, transport, and hoist this enormous block to the summit? Granite is not found locally in Tanjavur, where the temple stands. The nearest quarries are over 50 kilometers away, which raises the first question: how were thousands of tons of stone transported across that distance? One hypothesis suggests that massive stone blocks were dragged using wooden sledges, ropes, and elephant labor over specially prepared paths. Another theory envisions canals or rivers as part of a transport network. However, neither ancient records nor archaeological evidence offers a complete picture. The mystery deepens when examining the temple's construction techniques. Each block of the tower was cut and placed with such precision that the structure has withstood a millennium of monsoons, earthquakes, and erosion with minimal damage. Even more baffling is the method by which the 80-ton capstone was raised. Some scholars propose the use of a massive earthen ramp that extended for several kilometers, allowing workers to roll the stone to the top gradually. But this ramp would have required as much effort to build and later dismantle as the temple itself, and no trace of it has been found. Adding to the intrigue are the intricately carved pillars, walls, and corridors, many featuring elaborate sculptures and inscriptions in Tamil and Sanskrit. These artworks were not created post-construction. They were carved directly into the granite blocks before or during placement. This required an astonishing level of foresight and planning. How did artisans coordinate the alignment of imagery, texts, and structural balance with such accuracy, without digital models or blueprints? There are also no detailed records of the temple's construction methods in surviving Chola literature, despite the dynasty's otherwise rich tradition of documentation. What we do know comes from inscriptions that list donations, rituals, and festivals, but not the engineering genius behind the edifice. Some oral traditions claim that the temple was divinely inspired or constructed with supernatural aid, and while these stories are not taken literally by historians, they reflect the awe the structure inspired even in its own time. Today, Brihadeeswarar Temple remains not just a sacred site, but an architectural enigma. It continues to function as a place of worship, drawing both devotees and researchers eager to understand the secrets of its creation. Until hard evidence emerges, the true methods of Chola masonry will remain a brilliant, perplexing chapter in the story of medieval engineering. And with that, we wrap up our journey through 10 mind-blowing mysteries of the medieval world. If you enjoyed unraveling these historical enigmas, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because there are many more mysteries waiting to be explored.